Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Case Digital. In this video, we are going to be making our very own countdown timer to ring in the new year. I know that this is the start of the new year, so you've probably already rung it in, but this is exactly what we're going to make. So we have a little pie game application that will, given a number of seconds, we'll count them in with randomly changing colored backgrounds. And by the end of it, you'll see that it displays Happy New Year with the year and a bunch of little confetti. So without right in and start learning how that we can make this ourselves. All right, so to make this countdown timer, we're going to need a few things. So for this, I used a module called Pygame, which is a very common Python package module that is used for creating video game or like kind of your own video game with Python. And so we're going to use that to help us kind of get that display, because we could make a timer where we just have it count down in our terminal, but it doesn't give the nice cool effect of like watching stuff change and have like the confetti. And that's kind of what I really wanted for this. So to install that, you're basically going to come down into your terminal. And I have a virtual environment installed. Like, I highly recommend that you activate your virtual environment or create a new one. If you don't know how to do that, I have a video, a previous video that I'll link that you can go ahead and watch that. That shows you how to create a virtual environment. So with my virtual environment activated, and you can tell it's activated because it's over here, I'm simply going to type in pip install and then pygame. Now I should have already installed, so it shouldn't have to really do anything. But you can see, yeah, that it's already installed. So with that, then we have to go and import that. So I'm going to say import, and then we're going to say pygame. And then I know in this too, we're probably going to need some like randomization, because that's how I had like the confetti all in different spots. So we're also going to import random. And then just for the sake, I kind of usually always do this because I know I mean, somehow I'm going to need it, which is simply importing OS. And that's because this allows me to do like, you can do OS or you can do sys. And that allows you to do like exiting and stuff when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead, and those are basically going to be, I believe, the only packages that we're going to need. And so with that, let's hop right and start creating our countdown function. So with our imports, now we can go ahead and we can create our countdown down timer, kind of like our class, and this will be like the number of seconds that gets input that we want to count down, right? And we'll just say that's an int. And then what we'll do here is we'll basically set up kind of a lot of our, like the things that you have to set up for Pygame, as well as a lot of our constants, and then we'll kind of move it into the countdown portion. So when you're using Pygame, oftentimes, actually every time, you really need to run pygame.init, and this just kind of like activates everything within Pygame, get it all set up and working. After that, we're going to essentially need our screen, so that way we can display stuff on within our Pygame. So we'll go ahead and say screen is equal to pygame.display.setMode, and then in the case that I use, so what you could do here is pass in a tuple, and so I could say like I just want to do say like 800 by 600 screen, right? And that'll just be your screen size. Now, what I did, like from the brief demo that I showed you, is I made it go full screen, and we'll probably change that here in a minute. But if you do full screen, and we'll just maybe put it in here. Actually, we'll just put it in here and show what you do if you do full screen, and then we'll just comment out which one we're going to use. So for full screen, you kind of just say 00, and you just say pygame dot full screen. There it is. And just like that, Pygame will kind of go full screen if we comment this part out. But for now, as we're testing, I found when I was kind of first making this to kind of see how I would work through my brain and just learn Pygame a little, because I'm not very familiar. I'm still learning Pygame. I had some issues where Pygame, like if I went full screen, if I didn't add certain hooks in, I had to reboot or like almost like turn off my computer to get everything to exit out of the program, because of it kind of took over the full screen. So we'll kind of just go with kind of a smaller screen for now, and then we'll go full screen later. But oftentimes too, so if you know your screen size, what I would do is I would assign these to variables, so that way you can use them later on in the program and not just have what we call magic numbers as hard-coded kind of numbers in there. But another way to do that is if you just put numbers in, like you just have them hard-coded like that in, or if you go to full screen mode and you don't actually know like the screen that it's going to use. What you can do is we can create variables from our screen object, and I can say screen underscore the width is equal to screen dot get width, I believe. Yep. And then we can do the same thing for height. So screen underscore h is equal to screen dot get height. So right there, there's a couple variables that we can use. There's also probably something that you want is like at the top of like the actual like screen, it'll show like a title of like what the Pygame is. Oftentimes that's like the title of the game. So we can actually set that by saying screen, or no, excuse me, not screen. It's Pygame display dot set caption, I believe. Yeah, set caption. And then we can just set it to whatever we want. So we can say like New Year's countdown. If I can spell countdown. So that we could probably, move this probably up here after we have our screen. And then there's just a few other things that I would like to, that I would probably set up for this, is because oftentimes when you're doing like these things, there's a lot of colors that get involved, and you kind of want to set up colors that you can use. And colors are represented as an RGB tuple with Pygame. So like the first, so they're essentially like, so if I was doing red, let's say, that would equal to 255.00, right? If I was going to do, say, blue, or so let's go green, then this would be 0, 255.0, and then blue would equal to 0, 0, 255. Now, if you want to do some other colors, I grabbed some other colors, and I'm kind of going to look on my other screen here to do the colors that I chose. So there's like orange. And that's going to equal to, like, it's going to be Morris red, and then 165 and 0. And then we're going to do pink, and that's going to be equal to 255, 192, and 203. All right, so that's great and all. I'm going to also put these in a list so that we can use these colors, pass them around in a list if we need. So we can say colors is equal to red, green, blue, orange, and pink. So just like that, we've got basically a lot of kind of like the pre-setup, or like the setup that we need before we can kind of go into the countdown portion of the actual countdown timer, and then kind of helping display all that. So the next part that we'll do, like I mentioned, is we're going to take all these that we've used, and we're actually going to create the countdown portion of our countdown timer. All right, before we can actually do our countdown portion, I actually forgot one other constant that we need, and that's a font that we want to use, like with the size. So we're going to say font is equal to Pygame dot font dot, and then capital font. And then here, you can either like pass in the name that you have, or it can be none, and none will just default to like the default system font that it's going to use. But then the nice thing that I want to use for this is I want to use the default one, but then I just want to be able to give a different size and test it with different sizes if I wanted. And so for example, like since I know we're going to go pretty big, like I'm just going to do 106. Sure, let's go with that. And we can play with that as we see fit. But now, if we go into, so like, this is basically our constants. So if I come up here, like, constants, there we go, constants. And then this is like the countdown portion. Can't spell countdown for some reason, right? All right, so in a countdown, essentially, you can just go back to the normal things that I've taught on this channel with lists, with for loops. So in this case, we're just gonna do something like for, and then our current sec in the range from, now what we want to do is, I don't want to go from 0 to a number, or to the to the seconds that we passed in up here. I basically want to go from that second, and I want to go down to 0, and I want to count downwards. And so to do that, like, you can basically say seconds, so that'll start from our seconds. The second value will be 0, and then we want to do our step, which is going to be a -1. So when we do this, what happens is we're going to start from seconds, go all the way to 0, and then it'll step down. It'll step downwards. So you can go ahead and I can show this really quick. So print sec, and then just to like make sure Pygame doesn't do anything weird, we'll do Pygame.quit. Just so that will kind of help shut down everything with Pygame down below. And then I can also, if we're going to do this, we actually need to like use it. So we're going to say countdown timer, and we'll go from 10 seconds. So if I go ahead and I run this, make sure nothing should die. There we go. All right, there we go. So we run this, and then you'll see that it just ran really quickly. And that's just because we're just printing stuff out. And you can see that you get this kind of like hello from the Pygame community thing that pops up for Pygame. And then right here, our seconds, it starts from from 10 because we wanted to start from 10, and it goes all the way down to 1, and that's just the last one because we're going from 10 to 0, and that's not included. It's just once you pop out of that for loop, it means it's hit 0 essentially. So 10 all the way down to 1, and then that's how we're going to count, right? And so now to do this though, we don't want it to display in our terminal. We want it to actually, print up on the screen. So like we want to take this information that's, getting displayed in here, and we want to print it to our screen. So to do that, essentially what we have to do is we got to kind of like fill our screen. So like what we could do is like, probably should put in here too, like the color white, because that's often a very common background color used. So 255, 255, and 255. So we could say that we basically want to say, take our screen, and we want to screen.fill, and we just want to fill it, just completely cover it, almost kind of like overwrite it, with a specific color, and we're just going to say white. For now, we'll change this here in a minute. We'll make this randomized and do all cool stuff, but for now, every time it goes through, each second, it's going to refill our screen with the white color, right? But then after that, we need text, right? So we're just going to say our text, or the thing that we want to write to the kind of screen, is going to equal to our font. So font dot, and then we're going to render it. And we're going to say we want to basically render just our number, right? Because that's what we're counting down. So in this case, we're just going to render sec. And then we're going to pass in true, and then the color that we want to render it. And I guess I should have done another color down here, which is black, and that is going to be 0, 0, 0. And then that way I don't have to pass it in, right? I can just say the number or the color. So now that we have our text, we're basically going to convert our integer, because this is going in numbers. So this will be this right here, this variable will be an actual int value. We need to convert that to a string so that we can render it for our text. And then from that, we need to apply it to our screen. So to do that, we're going to say screen.blit. And then what we need to do is we need to pass in basically, in this case, the source. So we're going to say that's our text. And then we're going to say the destination of where we want to put it. And this is in a tuple, right? And so the place that we want to put this is probably center of our screen. Well, to get the center of our screen, we need to know and do some calculations with our screen width and height, which is kind of those variables that we got up here, right? So if we want to put this in the center of the screen, what we need to do is we need to take the width. So the x will be the width, and then the y will be the height. And so this is going to be width and height first. So we need to say our screen. We need to get the middle of our screen. So we need to say screen width. And I'm going to do this double backslash for divided by 2, because that's going to get the floor of, and can basically make it an int of whatever the our screen width is divided by 2. So like in our case right now, we know that it's going to be 800. And so when I divide it by 2, it's going to be 400, but sometimes they'll make it so it's a float. So we want to make it so it's not a float, essentially. And so we're going to get this will make this 400. But the thing is when we do this, we also have to account the width of the font that we're using, right? Of our text. So to do that, we then have to subtract off the text.get width. There it is. And then we also have to divide that by 2, right? Now, and we basically then have, so that should center, at least in the width direction, that should center our number there. Now we have to do that for the height. So to do that, I'm basically going to just make a comma, or no, because this needs to go in this guy. So we'll make a comma here, and then we're basically just going to copy all this. And then we're going to then change out the screen width for H, and then the get width for text to get height. And then and then we'll go ahead and save it. And then I have an auto formatter on, so that should kind of like help us wrap all this down so it's a lot, you can see it. And so just like that, we've got our text for where we're going to place this, so what we're going to place and then where we're going to place it. And just like that, we should, and then before we can actually, see anything, what we'll have to do is we'll have to come down here and we'll have to say pygame.display.flip. And what this does is basically refresh the whole screen. So there are things that you can do to only specifically like update or refresh like a specific thing on the screen. Like if you had like a rectangle object or something, and you're just moving that, or you can just update that. But when you do this flip, what it's going to do is basically update the whole screen, and that's kind of what we need for what we're doing. So if we run this, we'll go ahead and try and run this, and I believe, so if we run this, boom, it just kind of like exited, and like you probably didn't see, like you may have not seen it on the screen, but you probably, if you try this, if you're coding along with this, you probably saw that like something popped up and then went away down below on your like kind of like desktop bar. What we need to do though is we need to catch events, right? So like I can just run through all these really quickly, and I can I can run through all these really quickly, but at the same time, we need to slow it down. So like we actually need to wait a second because we're trying to do a countdown timer. So we need to wait a second, and we need to catch what happens if any events pop up. So to do that, like I can go in here and I can say, let's just try just doing like the catch or slowing it down, right? So that way we do pygame.time.delay because we're doing seconds. And now since we're always just doing seconds, the delay takes in milliseconds. So you have to know that the conversion from 1 second to a millisecond is 1,000. And so we'll just try this. And so we go ahead and run this. You'll see that as it's going, that it seemed to take a little bit longer and it exits, right? But we're not really seeing anything. So we need to be able to see stuff. And so we're gonna go ahead and catch any events as well. Oops, so pygame. And then we'll say for event in pygame.event.get, and then we'll say if event type, event.type. Now there's two things that I kind of want to put in the event types is basically say if the event time is equal to pygame.quit, then we want it to exit, right? We want to be done. But also I want to put in like a backup key in case for whatever reason, like the quit usually means like the X button on the screen, like on a normal like window that pops up and has the X, I guess on this would be in the upper left corner. But I like if that's not present, like say we go full screen and that's not present, I want to be able to have like a backup thing for a key, like on a keyboard. So to do that, we're also going to say if the event type is equal to pygame or and then we'll put parentheses here because it's going to be kind of like a double condition here. So like, or the event.type is equal to pygame.key down. So like if a key has been pressed, and event.key is equal to pygame.k underscore. And then if I do k, like you'll see like here's all the numbers that people could press. And in our case, we want the escape because I just want it to be the escape game. I could do like F1 or a number or the home or whatever, but in our case, we're just going to do K escape, and we'll just do that. So if that's the case, and then we want to basically pygame, we want it to quit and start shutting down everything, and we want our os.sys.exit to be 0, and we want to exit. So I'll save that. It should wrap stuff so we can see it. And that right there should be the basis of us doing our countdown section of what we want to do. So what we've gone over again, we're counting down from the seconds that we pass in, and we're going from that second all the way down to 0. And every time we're refreshing our screen to be white, and we're taking that number and converting it to a text that's rendered in that font size, so like 106. And then we're placing that on our screen in the center of our screen, right? And then we're going ahead and update the screen. And then we're going to try and catch any events. So like if someone like in the middle of like the countdown, like if they hit X or they hit the escape key, then they can leave. And then basically we want to wait 1 second because we're doing a countdown, right? So we want to wait 1 second for that. So with that should be kind of basically all that we need to do the countdown portion of our countdown timer. All right, with all in place, so go ahead and we'll hit we'll go ahead and run it and make sure that it does work. So I'll go ahead and hit this, and just like that, you'll see that the countdown starts. And this is kind of an event. If you hit this red X, that'll kind of be the quit button. So like I hit it in the middle of the countdown, an event was caught and it exited, right? So now if I go ahead and rerun that, I can also, like while I'm in the midst of counting down, I'll press the escape right now, and just like that, it exits. So what happens though if this gets all the way to the end? So we're counting down. You can see that our New Year's countdown is up at the top. We started from 10 seconds. We're going down every second. And then when we get to 1, just like it showed, like when we had when we did in our terminal, it stopped at 1, it delayed a second, and then pygame quit, and then we were done, right? So we actually now want that, right here in this section of code, we know that, I'll just put a comment in here, that time is up. Like we have made it to the end, right? So now we want to actually change it so that our screen displays like Happy New Year. So to do that, we're basically going to do the exact same thing that we did with our text up here. So what I'll do is I'll copy this, and I'll just come down here and I'll say New Year's text. Oops. And I'm going to say that this is going to be a string that says Happy New Year's, just like that. And in this case, we will make it, let's switch it up. So rather than be black, let's do red. So you'll be red, we'll render that. And then now we need to do the exact same thing we did up here. We need to take our text and we need to place it on our screen. So I'll just copy that part and then we'll indent this correctly. And rather than using our old text, which would have been a number, we're gonna use our New Year's text. And then we'll still do this exact same thing, except for we need to switch out text here as well. So now if I run this, oh, and I forgot one thing. We also have to go in and do this. So we'll flip, we'll flip it, so refresh our screen. But even this might have an error, and we'll see what happens as we're coding live, right? If I go ahead and I rerun this, you'll see it will start down. We'll have the, or just our plain old white background with our black numbers as they count down. And we go, as we hit 1, you'll see that it kind of like overwrote, right? You saw how there was a 1, but then it kind of just like quit. And we don't really want that, right? We want it to kind of hang in there and to keep, to stay visible until someone hits like escape or closes the program down. To do that, so we have 2 things to fix. We need we need to re-flash our screen so that way we can just display our 1 text on there and it doesn't have our 1 and our Happy New Year's covered up. So to do that, well, what we did before was we just completely did a screen.fill and we just filled it with white. And then we overwrote everything with our Happy New Year's. And then we had this, which allowed us to basically come in here and we'll just do, because we want to have it up until something happens. So we'll just say, we'll have a variable that says is running is equal to true. And then what I'll say is while is running, do that. And then we'll just say is running is equal to false. And so that what this should do is essentially keep up that loop or keep up that screen until someone comes in and hits the quit button or hits the escape button on the keyboard. And then it'll exit this loop and hit quit, or then it'll do pygame.quit. And then after that, it'll kind of exit the function. And then after that, it'll kind of close down because that's it, right? So if I rerun this, let's see if we fix the 2 issues that we had. We'll see that as we count down, as we get all the way down to 1, after this, 1 should disappear. So say Happy New Year's, and then it just hangs, right? It's just going to stay there. So it'll only exit now. Like if I go ahead and I press escape, now it exited, and just like that, we have our kind of our Happy New Year's thing in place. But now let's make this a little bit more interesting. We don't want to just say Happy New Year's like that's cool. We want to like kind of oftentimes with like you see like the ball drop and all that stuff is like they have like Happy New Year's and then the year, right, that we're gonna do. So let's do that. Now to do that, you could add whatever you want, but in my case, I'm gonna go ahead and add that. And really, I'm just gonna add the exact same thing, or do the exact same thing. But this one I'm gonna say year text, and we can just manually type in the year. So like in our case, we're gonna do a string, and this is gonna be say 2024. You can do that. You could also use the datetime package, and you could actually grab the year at that point in time and use that if you wanted. But here's the trick, though. So in this case, though, if we put this year's text in, the issue that we're going to run into is that if I use this exact same kind of blit code where we plop it onto our screen, the width is fine because what's going to happen is the width, we want it centered, right? In our application. So whether that's on a little screen and wherever that's at on our screen, or it's like the full screen, we want the width of the text centered, like dead center, and so this calculation right here is fine. However, the height, if we put the height in, if we rerun this, and I'm only going to say let's go from like 3 seconds just to like keep it like we know it's counting down, right? So we're going to go ahead and rerun this. And so 3, 2, 1. If I keep the width, which is fine there, but I keep the height the same, we get this like gobbledygook of like everything is conjumbled, right? And so we don't want that. So I'll hit escape, close that down. So that means we need to come in and we need to fix our height. Well, if I want this to be centered in the height, what I could do is say, well, I know that this will be centered vertically and horizontally, but if I want to make it go just below, what I would do is you could take this whole thing and then you could say, put parentheses around it just so there's order of operations, and you can say plus 100, right? So now, and I just do 100 because like our font is like 106, so this should put it actually pretty close, I believe. And so if we rerun this, you'll see that 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. And now look, it just put it under there. So that means like when you like, and that's one thing to note is like, if you push 100, that's going to push it down. And I believe, and I'm going to close this down up here this time. If I said minus 100, I believe that should push it at the top, right? And so 3, 2, 1. Yep. And it puts it right at the top. So that's just to know is a lot of times, like a lot of these things on computers, like they start from 0, 0 is up in this top left corner rather than this bottom right corner. And I can't remember what it is for Pygame, but it appears that it is kind of similar for Pygame, because when I go a bigger number, like, you know, it's growing in the Y direction and it's growing and it goes down, right? It pushes it down. So that's what it appears to be a Pygame as well. So, but that's just one thing to watch out. Some don't, or actually now that I think about it, I'm not sure of one that it does start from the bottom left. There probably is one. I probably just can't think of it off the top of my head. But so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put plus 100. So that way we shift it down. And so that way we know that we're centered vertically, but then we're also pushed down, you know, 100, you know, pixels from the vertical. So that, you know, if I run this, like, that's nice and pretty, but we don't have the confetti, right? Like at New Year's, they have the confetti and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and do the confetti portion of for our countdown timer. All right, so we have our basics of our countdown timer, but now we need the confetti, right? That goes with the whole New Year's. So like I mentioned, we're going to do that. I'm actually going to create a new function for this. And I'm going to say def, and then we're going to say draw some confetti. And then for this, I want to do is, because we're kind of keeping this in-house, and this will probably be used within the countdown timer function, we're going to actually pass it a screen, so the screen object. And we want our confetti to be all different colors, so I'm actually going to pass in that colors list that we did. So I'm going to pass in, colors. We're going to pass in colors. And so just like this, we're going to say how many we want. We're going to do a for loop. And because we're not really going to, like, there's not going to be labels or anything associated, we can use this underscore and just say we don't really care what it is. We just need you to loop through this at this number of times. I could use a while loop and do a counter, but this is just faster, in my opinion. And so we'll say in range. And then we'll just say we're going to make 20 confetti pieces. And in this, we actually are just going to make them random. So I need to say X is going to be equal to, we want them random positions is what I'm trying to say, I guess. So random dot rand int, because we need integer values. And I'm going to say from 0 to the screen, dot get, and then X is associated with the width. So we want to get our width, and then we want to do the exact same thing, but with our Y. Change this to Y. There we go. And just say get height. All right. So now we have our basically our position, right, of where the confetti is going to be. Now I want to choose a color for the confetti. So I'm going to say the color is going to equal to random. And so one thing that's really nice about random is it has this rand choice. So like you can do choices or choice, and I'm just going to say choice, and it's going to give me, if I pass in a list, it's going to just randomly select one thing from that list, and that'll be the color, right? So I'm just going to say choose from the colors thing, and just randomly choose one, and then that'll be my color. And now I have the position, I have the color, and now I just need to draw on our screen. So we're going to say pygame.draw. In our case, we're just going to make our confetti thing just little circles. So we're just going to say draw a circle. And we're going to say here is the screen that we want you to draw on. And then here is the color that we want you to use, right? Color. And then here is the X. Here's the position, so the X and Y value. And then the radius. I believe this is the radius in our case. And we're just going to say just a radius of 5. So just like that, that's how you draw on our screen our little confetti pieces. So now we need to go down and back into our function, and we basically need to figure out where we want to draw this, right? So in our case, like, we don't necessarily want to draw it during the countdown section, right? We want to draw it during the time is up section, where we have all of our Happy New Year's 2024. So I'm really just going to come down here and put this function right here, and I'm going to say pass in screen and pass in colors, because screen is the one that we've been using. And then we also, in this function, set up a colors list with red, green, blue, orange, and pink. And we'll just randomly select from those colors, and we'll get confetti with that. So if we go ahead and we just rerun this, because that's really all you have to do, since we are doing all the drawing in our confetti function, we can come back down here to our terminal. We can hit enter after we type in the script, and 3, 2, 1, boom, Happy New Year. Look, you can see 20 pieces of confetti randomly all over our screen, which is pretty cool, right? So now you have kind of like, you have your confetti, you have Happy New Year's. Let's make it kind of like more interesting, because like I think with the ball drop, they do something like when it's counting down, like on the big screen, they have like changing different colors. So rather than ours just being kind of like, if I go ahead and rerun this again, rather than ours just being this just plain old kind of like white background, let's have it change colors, right, as it changes text. So we'll go ahead And to do that, what we can essentially do is come all the way back up to our screen. And this is where the screen is, right? Like we fill it with white first, then we draw on top of it. Well, if we wanted to randomly choose the color, we could essentially say our background color is equal to, we'll say random dot choice, and then we'll pass in our colors list, right? And now if I do this, just like that, I can pass it in. And now we'll change our screen.fill from white to our background color, and this should now just be a random color. So we go ahead and we'll go back to the longer countdown version so we can see this a lot more. So if we rerun this, you'll see that it starts out as pink, now green, pink, blue, pink, likes pink apparently. And sometimes it'll be the same color, like just like there. But that's just because it's randomly choosing, right? And so just like that, you have now created the countdown timer where you can ring in your own New Year's, or you can ring in your own new special event. Maybe you're making a YouTube video and you want to say 1,000 subscribers or 1,000,000 subscribers or whatever. Like you could do that. Or maybe you guys hit a new milestone at work or something. You could create a countdown timer just like that and make it your own. So now let's escape and I want to do one last thing with you guys. And that is essentially to come all the way back up and show you how to make this full screen. Now, again, before you do any of the full screen stuff, I want to make sure that, and I want you to test out and make sure that when you hit the escape key or whatever key that you've designated while it's counting down or while it's still up there, that it does close down when you hit it. Otherwise, you may get stuck where you actually have to reboot your computer because it won't exit out of the full screen mode and you lose control for whatever reason. So there's the caveat. Now let's go back up here and let's go ahead and comment out that, or no, I want that one. Let's comment out this screen and we're going to move this one down. There we go. And we're going to uncomment this one where it says 00 full screen. So when I run this should make it kind of go full screen, do our countdown, and then exit, and then we'll come back and you'll see my face again. So if I go ahead and I rerun this, barring that nothing breaks, and I can exit out of this, but you'll see 10, 9, just counting down. And colors, randomly choosing background colors. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's not. Happy New Year's. And now it's stuck there until I either hit, and now look, there's no exit right up here. I can't exit this because I can't find the red thing or the red exit button or the quit button because it's gone full screen. This is why you need a key to hit on your keyboard. So if I hit escape, go back, and we have finished making of our countdown timer using Pygame. You could do this just the terminal if you wanted, but I thought it'd be more fun to do a little project here with Pygame. And that's our countdown timer. So I hope that you found this video fun. I hope that you found it very helpful. Rather than I do a lot of the basics of like things of how to do strings and lists and all that stuff, and those are great and fun. But this is kind of combining all that into kind of like, hey, I have an idea. I want to do a countdown timer. How do I do it? Well, you can Google online. There's resources like ChatGPT, which I did use a little bit to help with some of the Pygame stuff because I was having trouble when I was testing this out. But in the end, testing is the biggest thing when building projects and trying out taking from your, like, I'm learning all the basics to like I'm combining the basics into bigger projects. So I hope that you found this very helpful. If you did, please hit the like button below. If this is something more that you want to see, like if you want to see more projects like this, please leave a comment down below of what projects that you want to see, or just like, you pick the project, I want more projects. If you have a specific project in mind, there should be down in the description, there should be a Google form that you can go fill out that you can put in your information and just say, hey, this is the type of project that I'm looking for or what I'm trying to do. Can you do something like that? And that just helps me know what you're looking for. And it doesn't have to be projects. It could be like, hey, I need help with strings or lists or whatever the case may be. But that just knows what you guys are looking for, and I can make videos specifically related to that. So I hope you found this really fun, helpful. Again, Happy New Year. I hope to bring a lot of more fun videos throughout this new year. And until next time, keep on programming.